Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 27. Wow, I can hardly get it out. It seems so crazy that we've already gone 27 days. Well, we've gone 26 days. Today's the 27th day. And I'm just as excited as I was on day one because I know that every day is a new day and God deposits something fresh and perfect for those who are listening and those who are listening to the replay. So I know today is no exception, that you are going to receive something for the Lord that is going to encourage you, bring hope, and maybe even help you in your journey or as you walk with someone else in their journey. So today I'm going to introduce you to my friend who we have come to know through a mutual mastermind that we're part of. But Brooke Ahlberg is a mother to an active 3-year-old little boy and wife to her husband, Josh, for 10 years. Brooke was born in Houston, Texas, and moved to Park City, Utah in 2014. After an unexpected loss in 2017, Brooke was faced with grief and reconnected her life with Christ. Through her spiritual and healing journey, Brooke started speaking at support groups and family organizations in 2019, teaching others how to find their identity after a loss through the Word of God. Brooke and her husband have been a facilitator for Share Parents of Utah since 2021, which has allowed them to grow their relationship with God and teach others the importance of holding on to God's Word when weathering the storm. So welcome, Brooke, to the stage.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing so well. I'm really excited to have you, Brooke. I've been looking forward to our conversation today because I know when you and I first met back last year, not too long ago.
I know.
Very quickly we got into stories about loss, and the conversation went there. So I so appreciate you and who you are and what you have to offer to women. And I think it's just so valuable and so important to be able to have these conversations when sometimes it doesn't even sometimes people feel like I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to do. And, or even just to understand what's going on inside of them, all those things. But I know we're going to get into some of that today, but I would love it if you would share a little bit, Brooke, about how you came to, a little bit of your story.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about finding identity after loss. And for those who are listening, I want you to keep in mind that loss is very unique, to each individual, and it can look differently for different people, but yet the impact it can have on someone can be detrimental, whether you lose a job, you lose a loved one, or you lose a dream. Really there's different layers of that. So I want you to keep that in mind as you're listening, although your loss may be different, asking the Lord, God, what is it in this that you want me to take hold of so that I can receive what I need to move forward and to find identity after the loss that you've suffered. So let me know where you're joining me from. And as always, let us know what is it that the Lord is speaking to you, or any questions that you have for Brooke as well. So Brooke, I'd love it if you would share with us your story.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the opportunity to do so. You have been such a blessing in my life. We just met, like you said, late last year, and just felt that instant connection and just having the opportunity to share. And I think you hit it on the head. This is my journey of loss. Loss is so much to so many people, but so many times the impact and the journey is the same, whatever that loss may be. And there's a lot of time it is. We've got to reach out. We've got to reach out to who can help us. And that's where that reconnection for me came from. But yeah, like you said, it was back in 2017, and we had decided to start a family. And, I was a little older at the time, my husband as well. So we knew there may be some challenges, but we didn't quite know what was in store for us. I don't think people ever do sometimes.
No.
But really, we started on the journey to start a family, and we realized pretty quickly there were some fertility challenges, and we sought out that fertility help. And quite honestly, they gave us a very low percentage of being able to start a family, kind of in the conventional way, if you see it, if you look at fertility treatments as that. But we decided to kind of keep faith and just, push forward and see, kind of put it out there to God and say, this is meant to be our path. Let's go for it. Let's see what this IUI journey is going to look like for us. We were blessed with at the second round of IUI, after only given a 5% chance to get pregnant, that we conceived.
Wow.
And obviously elated. We were, kind of moving through with what seemed to be a very normal pregnancy. Knowing a little bit what I knew, I was cautious and didn't want to say anything too early. I think that's one of I always say, kind of in my support groups, the cruel little joke that they tell us: you get past 12 weeks and you're in the clear. And unfortunately, what we've experienced in working with so many families, that is not the case. But regardless, I still waited till 16 weeks to share our news. We had a gender reveal at 19 weeks and found out we were having a precious little boy. And we went to our 20-week ultrasound and excited, now all of a sudden we know it's a boy, and we're going to really kind of see, our little guy. And that's where we received the news that he had a condition called encephalocele, which is neural tube disorder. I don't know about you or anybody who may be listening, when you kind of hear that news that truly pulls the rug out from underneath you. It really changes the trajectory of your life. I kind of call it the Charlie Brown effect. And I remember in that moment, it was just very much of wah, 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 wah.
Right.
And kept kind of telling myself that, when the doctor comes back in, it's going to be okay, because the technician, is the one that noticed some abnormalities, left us in this room, and all my husband and I could do was hold each other's hand and pray and just say, if this is our path, we're here for it, let us know. But the doctor did come in and basically said, you have 3 options and none are positive. We fast forward a couple of weeks. We had our son. He was born alive at 21 and a half weeks.
Wow.
And the blessing and the gratitude that it took some time to find was that we got to be there for his first breath, and we got to be there for his last. And it was just in that moment of trying to find a way to give him dignity, and try to find a way to make sense of it, everything, and to honor him in the best way. And obviously we went home empty-handed and still trying to process even the news we got, because everything was happening very quickly. And I remember being on the internet, and I giggle at it now. I realized the internet's probably not where I needed to be. I probably needed to open up my Bible and really search that way. But I was in a space of just probably, death scrolling.
Yes.
And I don't even know what I was scrolling, but I just remember that all of a sudden I saw, trust the Lord, have faith, not despair. And it was just this moment of like, okay, loud and clear, I hear you. And you will not forsake us, and we're going to be okay. And then I remember then finally picking up the bereavement packet from the hospital, and that's when I saw the pamphlets for an organization called Share Parents of Utah. It's a beautiful organization. It's a nationwide organization that works with parents of miscarriage, infant loss, and stillborn. They were huge in our life. And I just knew that this was kind of going in lines at the beginning when I knew, what is my point? Why is this happening? Make this my message, that I knew that once I was able to kind of get through a certain place within that organization, that I was called to, my husband and I were called to serve other families, and help them, with this loss, and try to make sense of it, and guide them in the right way, and just give that reassurance and safe place, what it is. And anybody who, as we've talked about, kind of go through a loss, you're not the same person necessarily. And so that was a journey in itself, but that's kind of where my journey started and kind of continued.
Wow. I love how even out of the hardest times of our life, God can bring the treasures, that he wants to bring forth. There's a scripture in Isaiah talks about that. In the darkest times can be brought forth these treasures.
Yes.
And, not only for you, obviously, because sounds like you renewed, you came into a fresh relationship, like a freshness in your relationship with the Lord,
Yes.
and also the pass it on. So, and you know, one of the things that I know have been statistics out there, when you go through a loss of a child, that it's very hard on the marriage. It can be extremely difficult, and not many marriages actually endure that.
So true. So true. And that was a big thing. I remember when we were on our way home, my husband and I just saying, let's not, we've been through at the time what we thought was a lot. And it's one of those things that I think at the different stages in our life, we all have our 10.
Yes.
This definitely was the biggest 10 we had gone through, but to not let us ruin us. And that was definitely something that we had worked on together. But it absolutely can. And I think that's why we just felt so called to be the first group in Utah to have a couples group, a peer-to-peer group, because when I initially started attending, it was really just women. And, a lot of times dads get lost in the shuffle of this type of loss. So it was just something we knew that we needed to make sure that the dads were identified, and that that we could just make sure that we could do this as a couple and help couples understand that we grieve differently, and that we need to turn our way to just make sure that this can make you stronger and not not tear you apart.
Yeah. Wow. What a gift for both of you to do that and to offer that to parents. I love that. I have never heard of any support like that, actually, because usually, like you say, it's one or the other, or they do separately, and so how did that work for your husband? Did he come alongside pretty quickly into that journey, or?
He was a little reluctant, I think, at first. Again, it's one of those things that people grieve differently. Men grieve very differently than women. But I think he saw when I would come home, and he saw just not feeling so alone, that he was a couple months, to follow. And then we just kind of saw some of the impact that we were receiving by also being there and being a couple and helping other couples in that journey. So it was pretty quick that we knew that this is part of what we were called to do.
Wow, that's so good. So, Brooke, is there anything that you want to share in terms of that you feel it's important for anyone listening today in the journey that might help them find their identity and move forward in a way that's healthy and strong, or just with renewed focus?
I think the first thing is you got to turn it over to God. You've got to. It may not make sense at first, but there's a path. There's a reason. There's that mess in that message. That was the biggest thing. I felt that relief when I finally just said, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
And I don't maybe want to understand it. I just show me. So that was kind of the first step. I think the next step is accepting that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay. And it's so important to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to find a like-minded tribe that's going to help lift us up and support us in the right ways and through our faith. And then there were some very tactical things that I did. One was something as simple as just getting up and making my bed every day. And I know it sounds so simple and kind of ridiculous, but it was one of those when you're in a space of not feeling motivated, not feeling like yourself, you look at it and go, I at least accomplished something. So it kind of checks that box. Another big practice was sitting down and having that quiet time every day, that spiritual time, that prayer time, just to reconnect and recommit and just find that safe space. And I think just really the full immersion of listening and being and surrounding yourself around the most positive things that you can, and that empowering content. whether that comes in the form of your Bible or a podcast or an audio book, whatever it may be. You may not buy into it right away, and that's okay, because this doesn't happen overnight, but just immerse yourself. And then I think another fourth step for me was just staying physical on some level, taking a walk. I'm in Park City, Utah, so we've got beautiful surroundings, and I remember doing a lot of hiking in that moment.
Wow.
And just enjoying all of God's creation that was around me, and just trying to find some solace and peace there. So a little bit of releasing and a little bit of kind of some tactical tools that were taught to me that seemed very simple and almost silly at the time, but it was filling all those cups that we need to in our lives, that spiritual cup, that emotional, that physical cup. And it's slowly but surely, you just start to see that progress within your life, and you start, I guess, getting and having an understanding of why we were all put on this path. To go, yeah, that you can be a better person. You can make impact. Even though something that totally just seemed at the time that rug got so ripped out from underneath you, and how are you going to pick up the pieces? Yeah. But you can actually be a better person and find some gratitude in it eventually. I won't say it happens overnight.
Yeah, it's a process. Yes. I remember when I was going through a time of grief, a loss in my life as well, that a couple of things that you mentioned were very, very key. Just getting up, washing my face, and getting dressed, doing something to make me feel, okay, I'm alive, I'm awake. And then the other thing is having that time. I would often go outside on my front porch and just sit there and read and write or cry or whatever I need to do, reflect. But journaling was a huge key for me as well, just to kind of process some of the emotions and some of the thoughts that came. I would just write and write and write and just let that be a part. And then I would listen. I would listen for whatever the Spirit of God wanted to say or whatever, and then write that. And that was huge. I don't know if you engage in that or if you find that with the people that you work with.
I'm a huge advocate of journaling. That was something that I did even when I was pregnant, just because it's kind of always been something I've done in my life, but it became a huge part of that healing process. So I encourage people to do it. Now, then there's somebody like my husband. He's like, that's just not my thing. That's just not what he does. But for a lot of people, it can be very healing. And just listening to the word and being able to get it down and put it down. And I think for me, when we hit that year anniversary, to be able to go back and read, and in a way, was it hard? Did I necessarily want to relive all of it? But at the same time, to see that progress, like you said, to see the progress of where you started and where you are, is empowering in itself. And so I'm a huge advocate for journaling.
Oh, good. I am too, because I know it's powerful, and it was a powerful tool in my life as well, even for processing, even just to kind of get it flowing out of you in some way, and then you be able to kind of see it differently, or be able to, just like anything, when you have, it's just releasing something that needs to be released. So the river just flows through us. It could be through shed tears, but also emotions can come in different ways and through our thoughts. And I think just acknowledging, identifying brings a level of freedom from, okay, I've just expressed it. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, it really was interesting to go back and read and to see the things that were coming out on paper. So healing and so empowering. So yeah, that's a wonderful step in trying to navigate, through that grief, and to be able to see that you have made strides forward. Because as you know, or anyone who has gone through something like that, it is a process, and there's no time frame to it. And it can come back and trigger at any point. You can be 5 years out from whatever that loss is, and the craziest things can trigger it. And I think being able to accept it and be vulnerable to it, and then ask, why is this? Lord, why am I feeling this again? And receive that message or path that maybe that's the next step for you through this. So
Yeah, that's so
yeah.
good. And to acknowledge that. Yeah, I love that you said that, because there is no time frame on it. There's no time limit on it. It is I heard this one time when I was, walking through a very intense time of grief, was you never, how was it? You never get over it, but you will get through it. It's like there's the element of, you may never get over it, but you will get through it. There is the hope and the process that you can get through it, but there's also going to be a part of you, because it's shaped part of you, right? It is part of, it's part of who you are, and you can't deny that. And that's a beautiful gift that you bring forward.
It is actually a gift. And I think in the thick of it, when we're all in that space, yeah, it may not feel so much like a gift, but it really is in what it can bring to our lives and how we can help, serve and impact others. Yeah, it can be, for sure.
Brooke, what are some of the things that you see that you maybe with the couples that you work with, that you've seen where people can get stuck? And maybe why I ask that question is because sometimes people don't realize they may be stuck in a place of, because even though it's a process, we can get stuck. And what are some of the things that maybe either hinder women or men from embracing or walking through that process in a healthy manner, or get stuck? What are some things that you find, either identifiers and what they can do to kind of move forward?
I think a big one is not allowing themselves to really accept the loss. And accept it and really release it. Like I said, when I finally was like, Lord, I don't understand why this just happened. I don't understand why us. Those are natural questions, but I'm giving it, I'm releasing it. I felt like I could start moving through it. And listen, there were bumps, right? I kind of had to do that reconnection and have that conversation a couple of times. But I do, when I see families who want to hang on to something and not accept it and allow themselves to be vulnerable to that feeling and that emotion that they're in, whether it's I'm in a very angry phase or I'm in that very sad phase, because it's all of it, right?
Yes.
That's when I see, it's like, that's when I see what the families that they do when they've been with us for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and they're kind of right there. That's when other things need to take place. And that's when we try to, just to use the Lord to let them know this is not, because not everybody is, in that space and has that relationship. And when we're able to kind of encourage that connection and that relationship is when we do see a lot of breakthrough with people. It's easy to get stuck, but it's just being vulnerable and just releasing and accepting the loss.
Yeah, that's really good. So is Share Parent a Christian organization, or?
It is. Yes, it is a faith-based organization.
And is it outside of Utah, or is it just local based?
It's a national organization. So there's groups meetings, and because since COVID, we've started doing more on a virtual level, which I think is great. I do think there's something about that in-person connection, but there are places that don't have a meeting, and there's certainly an opportunity to get on and be a part of people with like mind and truly know the shoes that you're walking in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got 7 meetings here in Utah. There was not a meeting in the area that I live in. And that was one thing that I felt very strongly about. Not only that we were going to do our first couples group, that we were going to have a meeting in our area. Because I know I drove, sometimes an hour and a half in the middle of a snowstorm, but that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And so I know that there was, just other people that needed to have that in our backyard as well. So you can email me at Brooke at shareparentsofutah.org if anybody's interested in just maybe finding out where they can go, or just, like I said, finding an additional space to just not feel quite so alone. And not so isolated.
That's so good. So any last minute things that you want to say as we wrap up our conversation today, Brooke?
That went by really fast. No, just thank you for allowing me to have an opportunity to share this and just encourage, women and couples and just like anyone who's gone through that loss, give yourself grace and just know it's okay not to be okay, but know that God has a plan and know that He is guiding this path to something that can be really great and a higher calling. And
That's
to
so
just,
Thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing your story, your heart, and the journey that you and your husband have been on, as well as just bringing hope and encouragement to those who find themselves in that place or looking for a place for them to connect to. And I think one of the things that you emphasize, which is what the Share Parents is as well, is finding the tribe, the like-minded people who you can feel safe and connected to. And I'm going to put up Brooke's website as well, in case you want to connect with her. She's a multi-talented girl. So if you want to reach out to her that way or through the email address that she mentioned, and I'll get you to mention that again if you want, Brooke.
Oh, yes. So Brooke at shareparentsofut.org.
Of UT, so ofut.org. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing this really important subject, because I think that as believers, this should be something that we need to be fearless about having conversations about, because it's a part of life. And the enemy would try to come in many ways to try and isolate us, make us feel shame, all those things around loss of any kind. And it's important for us to recognize that and to be able to, share those thoughts and feelings. And I love what you said. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to be not okay, because there's times and seasons when we're not okay. And that's our humanity. Absolutely. And that's why we need Jesus. That's why we need
That's when we turn even more. That's where that faith kicks in.
Exactly. All right. Well, bless you, Brooke. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. And make sure you reach out to Brooke if anything that she shared today resonated with you, or you had questions about, or you just want to maybe find a place in your area where you can connect with people for the purpose of finding your identity after loss or processing some loss that you're walking through right now. I just want to encourage you to do that, because in that, God wants to bring about, his wisdom, his grace, his perspective, his truth, because he wants you to walk forward in freedom and to bring forward the things that he's teaching you even through this time. And it's the becoming, like we become through everything we go through as part of our becoming. And so I love how only God can do this. He just pulls together all of the things that we look at, our messes or sorrow and all this and the joyful stuff, and just makes this beautiful masterpiece.
Yes.
He gets the glory.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, Brooke. Bless you, everyone. Have a good day. Make sure that you follow up and that you take to heart what God is speaking to you. Don't just let it go in, but take it, journal about it, say, God, what are you saying to me right now? What are you speaking to me that I need to take action on so that I can become that fearless woman of faith that you've called me to? We'll see you tomorrow for our very last session. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.